You can't always know in what direction a piece will take you. And if you leave that open, it makes for a much more interesting piece. My name is Rene Jansen. I'm from Auckland, New Zealand. I work as a sculptor, working in mixed media, mostly metals. I also work as a furniture designer and a maker. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I came here when I was 23. That was in 1984, and I've been here ever since. This is my studio in Orotia, West Auckland. So this used to be an orchard packing shed, and I got it 8 years ago, and I spent so much time doing it up. I put in walls, I created a workshop and a studio, and it's in a really great part of Auckland. Basically because there's a lot of nature, there's forest, it's hilly. It's not too far from central Auckland, so all of those things, they really work in favor of being here. The process of creating a piece is always multi-layered, because it starts with a design, a drawing, and then if it's a range that I want to develop myself, then I do a lot of research. Initially, I did some mostly larger works, like for instance a meter by meter. Then I realized that sometimes working a slightly smaller scale, you can relate what you're trying to do in a slightly different way. That is, becomes a bit more approachable. Often I might start with something which I think has potential and I love doing, and then I slowly take that further. And then what I find is one piece leads to the next. And then before you know, you have a range that relates really interestingly to each other. I remember I had an exhibition at Lopdell House here in West Auckland. It's now Tubular, and I had this small room, and it had 7 pieces of my sculptures on the wall, and it was just such a sense of satisfaction when you put these pieces on the wall and they related in a certain way to each other, and you could see, or to me it felt like I had created a language of sculptures that belong together. With my furniture, I don't mind to be polarizing or go out on a limb and do something that is people don't expect. I have quite distinct styles that complement each other, but are quite distinct, they're quite different from each other. I do the Tubular Range, which has its origins basically in mid-century furniture. I think when it was first introduced, it was a way to actually standardize and make furniture faster, you know, because before that everything was handmade, and then it became an industrial process, so factories could make things quicker. And now, of course, for me it's the opposite, because I do everything by hand, but I do a style of furniture that harks back to history, to my own heritage, but also to New Zealand, where tubular furniture has a great tradition. I make a lot of farmhouse tables in oak. There's obviously more interest in that type of furniture. You know, it's sort of more mainstream, but it also goes quite well with the type of New Zealand houses that are out there. You know, there's often, especially people with rural properties, a table as a way of gathering. You know, it's people like the bigger the better often. You know, so we do plenty of tables that are like 3 meters long. And again, you know, I often get people that say, "Oh, I've been to so many shops, but it looks too generic," you know, and then it's nice when they see photos of my works on the website, where they say, "Hey, I like what you're doing, can you do it slightly differently, or a different size, a different finish, color?" Yes, we can do that, and we love doing it, you know, and that's what it's all about, you know. And then when you deliver it, it's a great sense of satisfaction, you know, on both sides. So. I think there is times in life where you kind of have to take a step back and take stock. And this happened for me about probably 18 years ago. I spent a couple of years, 1 year back in Holland. I spent some time in Canada with my brother. But I also spent a year in France where I spent time doing up an old villa. It was the largest house in a tiny village in Pas-de-Calais, northern France. It was a very small place. It was only like 400 people. No one spoke English. It was quite a challenge for me to be there and to do up this large house. And it was also a time where, because I was kind of alone, where I had to find a way to sustain myself, not just with the work, but also emotionally. So at the time, I very much realized that, my art sustained me. So I went to the workshop of this huge house and I found some fragments of metal that had been used in the Second World War, and there was some welding equipment, and I put it together in a way where it's crazy, because it felt like the world got open again, and it sustained me, and it led me to other works of art to do. So there's always a way forward when you have art as a way to express yourself. My trip last year to the Himalayas, India, was enormously inspirational, and I'm so glad that I took that opportunity to go with friends and experience that, not just because everyone would love to travel in the Himalayas, but also because it opened me up to a whole different world. I came back to New Zealand with a renewed kind of energy, and I started some new works, and it's led me to this project called the Leaf Project, where I make brass and copper leaves and other pieces of sculpture that are more nature inspired. And it's amazing, because when you look at these leaves, you see the mountains of the Himalayas back in the leaves. So if you can connect it to a place, that gives it another dimension altogether again. When I think back of coming here when I was 23, it of course seems a long time ago, but in hindsight, it's been an absolutely fantastic decision. You only have to look around this part of New Zealand to realize it's been a great opportunity and a fulfillment of a long-standing dream, really. My parents wanted to immigrate to New Zealand, but somehow they never got the chance. In fact, they already bought a prefab house that they were going to ship to New Zealand, and then my dad got sick and it never happened. And I think I picked up some of his that kind of attitude, and I actually knew from a very young age that I wanted to get away as far as I could. And obviously I did, because you can't get further away than New Zealand. I think it's important as an artist, to have a body of work that there is a consistency going on, And you might say, yes, but you do all these different things, and that is very true. But even in those different approaches that I have to my furniture and my art, I still try to capture a niche that goes quite deep as I can. And often it takes a lot of headaches and a lot of soul searching before a piece of furniture or a piece of art comes into being. But then once it's there, you get a feeling, hey, I'm onto something. Keep pursuing it, keep doing it until you get what you want.